All right, folks. Hey, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us, as always. I've got this article here. We've been talking about this Pope County casino issue for a long time. Obviously, last week we know there was that ruling. The ruling that the ordinance to have the vote was unconstitutional. That's going to be appealed. Eventually, it's going to be, going to the Supreme Court. I think it's always, that was going to happen. But then there was also the Freedom of Information Act question, whether or not their Pope County officials have had secret meetings. I mean, I definitely think they've had secret meetings, but the judge's ruling on whether or not the secret meetings were in violation of the Freedom of Information Act, if that was actually what he did, has come under a lot of public scrutiny. This article here, I'll go ahead and show it to you guys. Northwest Arkansas editorial, public but not public. You see this right here. Judge's ruling threatens transparency, accountability. It's from the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Just a few of the excerpts here. A judicial robe does not impart perfection. Justice donning one in church won't turn a tone-deaf congregate into basically a Luciano Pavarotti. Indeed, they cover flawed humans attempting to perform their roles. And so they go into essentially just say, the Freedom of Information Act needs to be upheld. I wanted to bring in Conduit contributor, also law school student. Her name is Hannah Webb Howard. She joins us again. Hannah, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sorry for that long intro, but have you been following this at all?
So I have been following it, and, I have extensively gone through this order from the judge in this case, and particularly the FOIA section of it. And so there's two things that I really want to talk about. First, there's this comment he makes in the order, which says the Supreme Court of Arkansas has held that contact between board members before a meeting does not necessarily equate to a FOIA open meetings violation. Okay, that's correct technically, but I want to kind of dive into that a little bit. And so the other part that I want to talk about is when the judge goes on to dismiss this case, he says, to the extent that there was a FOIA violation, that violation was cured, at least as to the relief sought by the plaintiff, which is the most important line of that section, by an open meeting which subjects plaintiff to a FOIA claim dismissal under Rule 12b6. So a couple of disclaimers before we dive into this. It's a super kind of complex technical legal issue that happened here. It's terrible policy. I mean, it allows for exactly what happened here. It's terrible policy, and I don't agree with the policy. And I think that this is letting them kind of shuffle some things under the rug. But it's the law, and technically the judge did it correct here. So kind of diving into that.
Now, so how did the judge do it correct? Is it just like you saying it's like a procedural thing?
It's a very technical procedural issue. So essentially what this judge has done, he hasn't said, substantively, citizens of Pope County, you lose. He basically is saying, procedurally, you have not proven enough of your case to let this case go forward anymore. And so, you'll hear a lot of times cases are lost in the procedure of it. And so that's exactly what happened here. So, first of all, his comment about, necessarily contact between board members is not necessarily a meeting. Okay, that's true, but you've got to understand that the court has found that term meeting to be very, very broad. And so the court has found, even in the statute says informal meetings can be meetings. So they don't have to, bang the gavel and say, okay, we've got a quorum, here we're having a meeting. Meetings are much more than that. So let's say a couple of the board members get together on a Friday night, and they are going to substantively talk about something that's going to happen, some board matter or issue. That's a meeting because they're talking about, board-related issues substantively. And so in contrast, the court has found when a member gave other members of the board just information. It was a memo with information. Well, the court said, okay, that's not a meeting because you're just giving them background information. But there's been a case in Arkansas where one of the board members called individually on the phone, each member of the county, getting their input on whether he should purchase this piece of land. And so he called them each individually and then purchased the land. And then later, after the land was purchased, they held a meeting and approved his purchase. Well, the court said each of those individual calls in a sequence like that was a meeting. And so the definition of a meeting is very, very broad. But what's important about what this order says, the order never concedes that there were secret meetings. They just, they call them alleged secret meetings. They don't ever come out and say, yes, there were secret meetings. So that's a big point, that he never agreed that, there were secret meetings.
Wow.
No.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the media has reported about these meetings. There are many people who don't even question that the meetings were done in secret. I mean, there's even, county officials on record saying, yes, we met, but there was nothing wrong with the fact that we met,
Right. And so that would have been one of those issues that most definitely would have been fleshed out had this case been able to go forward. And so, and that's the thing, if 2-3 of these people met and they had any substantive conversation about matters that were going to be voted on or to eventually have a meeting on, that is a meeting within FOIA, period. It is. And so that's one of those issues that because this case isn't going to be able to go forward, we may not ever flesh out.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they're going to appeal it. I mean, hopefully, yeah. I mean, I'm told there will be an appeal, so that's still in play, right?
Correct. Yeah. So if they appeal this, we may see we may get to flesh it out.
Yeah.
And so moving on from that, basically what the judge did next is he said, well, even if there were meetings, the fact that they held an open meeting afterwards made it okay. It cured the FOIA violation. So
really, so oh my goodness. So he's saying because that's fascinating that so they eventually did come together and vote on it, and voted for the Cherokee casino. And so, oh wow, that's nuts. That's his assertion. Okay, go ahead, Hannah. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. So policy-wise, you're right. It's absurd. But, so here's why that can happen. So, when there's a FOIA violation, okay, we can all agree it's a FOIA violation, in any type of situation. But what do you do about it? What is the remedy? So, in the law, we call it a remedy. What can you do about it? So there's several different options. Some of them are laid out in the law. In the FOIA law, it says, you can get X, Y, Z if there's been a FOIA violation. But in this context, the citizens of Pope County wanted to invalidate the vote that happened at that subsequent meeting. So, several years ago, in a case in the Arkansas Supreme Court, the court essentially created this remedy of invalidation. So, the court said, FOIA is broad. We're supposed to read it broadly. We're always supposed to err on the side of transparency. And so because of that, we are going to allow laws or resolutions or ordinances that are passed in these subsequent meetings to be invalid if the person can prove, first, that they gave warning to the governing bodies. They give warning, you're not supposed to do this. You need to hold a meeting in the public. So they've got to give them that warning. And then if that governing body turns around and has a meeting in the public, well, then that's okay. But if they don't, so let's say that, they contact them and say, you're supposed to be having these meetings in the public. Okay. Well, then next they have to prove that they want this meeting in the public because of public matters, because they care about the public, not for some self-serving interest. And then third, they have to prove that the violation is substantial. And then fourth, they have to prove that the governing body has knowingly violated the FOIA Act. And so the reason that they put so many restrictions on proving this is because, the court was like, invalidating a resolution is a pretty drastic measure. And so to do that, we're going to make it difficult to show that and allow the governing body to fix the issue. So that's the law surrounding what has happened here.
Wow.
And that's how we got this law. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so to apply that to what happened in Polk County, and here's what the judge did. So essentially the judge said, okay, well, even if there were secret meetings, citizens of Polk County, you have not proven, and by proven, in their briefs and pleadings that they submitted to the court, you have not shown to us that you contacted them about these meetings and they kept holding them in secret after you contacted them. So that's the important part. So they're saying, well, they ended up having this open meeting. And once they had that open meeting, you no longer have proved step one of the four things that you have to prove. But there's a disclaimer to this open meeting. The open meeting cannot just be a vote. The open meeting has to be one where public comment can be taken. They flesh the issue out. They talk about it in detail. They let people protest and object. They let people voice their
but I see what you're saying. Yeah, and they're saying that they did that, and so it's totally fine, regardless of the fact we were straw polling, regardless of the fact we met with the Cherokee, regardless of all that, we did that in secret. But now that we're doing it in public now, you had the opportunity to change our minds and that sort of thing. So
right. So they're basically saying, okay, we fixed it. And so here's the thing. This type of situation is unique to only people who want the statute to be invalidated. So if you're just seeking an injunction, if you just want declaratory judgment, it's different. And so one thing that I have an issue with, the judge said, he said this cured the violation. Well, it didn't cure the violation. It's still a violation. You just can't get the relief that you want.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit misleading. And this could have been totally different if all they had done was say, okay, we're going to vote on this. Now, that would have changed everything. That would not have been okay. But giving this specific remedy sought in this specific fact pattern, essentially, that's what made it okay. And so the judge isn't saying, oh, Polk County, you lose. He's saying, well, you didn't prove each element to get this remedy, and so because of that, I have to dismiss your case.
Wow.
And so that's that very subtle difference about what happened.
Hannah, Webb, Howard, we appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on, talking about this. It's going to go forward. I know they're going to appeal this, and regardless of what happened, it certainly violates the spirit of the concept of open, transparent government, and
exactly.
I certainly hope
so
that something changes. Yeah.
And that's one of these things. So the good thing about a situation like this, it can be fixed. All that has to happen is the legislator could say, oh, we see this huge problem and gap in the law, and we need to fix it. And so that's just what it's going to take from here. And so hopefully that will happen, because it's terrible policy. It's a loophole.
Yeah.
And
we'll see what happens on the appeal too, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. All right, we appreciate it, Hannah. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to take a break.
Me, Paul.
Okay, back in a minute, folks.